So let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Jackson with Jackson number 39. I think the thumbnail says 38, and that is because I am incautious when checking these numbers sometimes. Sometimes I get it wrong, and that's okay. We will be soon joined by Jackson, who is getting to his computer to log in to Discord. He was previously on Discord on his phone because Jackson is super late because apparently he's got like responsibilities and has to do things like answer questions from students. Gross. So like, yeah, that's what's going on. I am here. I have some. Okay, so this glass is mostly a glass of gin, if I'm being honest, but it also has some prickly pear syrup in it in a ratio that approximates the level of sweetness and tartness of a gimlet, but rather than having a lime flavor, it has a prickly pear cactus fruit flavor, which is a flavor I really, really enjoy and have done so since well before I ever moved to the place where they grow wild, Arizona. So, yep. In fact, my first attempt with prickly pear and gin as a pairing was way back in Massachusetts, where the local grocery store just happened to have prickly pear for some reason, and I was like, you know what, I'll give that a go. I bought it. I got Glow Kid stuck in my hand because I was an idiot and I didn't know any better. And then I tasted it and I was like, this is really nice and refreshing. And not. Here's Jackson. So, sorry if there is some buffering. I did notice that my connection went really down. Jackson, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm just explaining some prickly pear and gin pairing ideas. So I'm gonna finish.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, weird. It tells me there is. Never mind. It's gone now. Okay. Never mind. Yes, I'm ready.
All right. Well, so I basically just mashed up some prickly pear and strained it into my glass of gin and tonic, and it was delicious, and also turned
Nice.
a very nice bright pink color that is hard to replicate in any other way. So yeah,
Okay.
very, very colorful drink. It turned it into the sort of drink that you might want at like a poolside. Which, I mean, to be fair, gin and tonic is already kind of that for me, but like more so with the prickly pear. Anyway, Jackson, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
Okay.
Set up for my lab tomorrow and had my biology class tonight. So.
Nice. All right. So we are here to take a look at the ramblings of one Dr. Charles Jackson. This is from, I believe, the beginning of the same year that the Ben Stein production
Expelled, no intelligence allowed, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Alex Markle says, wait, you don't just eat your prickly pear raw? I mean, I didn't cook it, but I do sometimes. I'll either burn off the glow kids or I'll just peel it with gloves on. Because glow kids are annoying. Jackson, do you know about glow kids?
No.
They're very, very small spines from cacti.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, they're the kind of things that get stuck in your skin and you don't even really notice at first, but then they just sit there irritating you for days.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. It's why if you get a prickly pear, you either need to scorch the outside or peel it with gloves on.
Okay.
And if you just bite into it, you will get glow kids stuck in your throat.
Ah.
Yeah,
So not fun.
No, don't do that. I've never done that, but apparently some people have, and it is extremely annoying and extremely unpleasant and also painful. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It tracks.
All right, so as you guys might know, we do a little bit of a drinking game for this. So we will go over the drinking rules real quick, then we will give a little context as to what Charles Jackson is about to talk about, and then we will just go into this. Now, I am not really planning on extending the end time for this because there are other obligations I have around that time. So unfortunately, it's just going to be a slightly shorter than normal show today. That's okay. Blame Jackson.
Yep. Do it.
Yep, blame him. Good Jackson in this. You can blame bad Jackson too. I don't care. But like,
That's true.
yeah. So first, we will take a drink if Bad Jackson says something that's so stupid we just kind of have to in order to cool our brains down. We will also take a drink if Bad Jackson says something that is in fact factually accurate, that he's not just quoting from someone, but that's actually something that was in his brain that he then sent down to his vocal apparatus and articulated as like speech that we can interpret as things that are true. Take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink if Charles Jackson tells a joke that doesn't land or tells a story that didn't happen. That was a bit of a judgment call, but if it seems like it should be on like r/that happened or r/ and then everyone clapped, yeah, we're probably going to take a drink for that. We will also take a drink if Charles Jackson mentions that political party that was very popular in Germany in like the 1930s into the 1940s, and then for some godforsaken reason is on the rise here in the United States as well as Germany again. So that's fun. Yeah, so we'll take a drink for that. And we'll also take a drink if Charles Jackson confuses what we can know about Australopithecus afarensis, or any larger taxon to which that group belongs, with what we can know directly from the skeleton Lucy. So, for instance, if he says, well, we don't know if Australopithecus could walk upright because we didn't find Lucy's feet. And, well, guess what? We found other Australopithecus feet, so sorry. That's what we call an ad hominid. We only get one of those per stream. We'll also take a drink if Dr. Charles Jackson can be successfully predicted by either Jackson or I. Also, if he cites a source, and then we go check the source, and the source not only fails to back him up, which is basically a given, but actively contradicts him, we call that a Trojan source, and we take a drink for that. There are also ways you guys can get us to take a drink. For instance, if you super chat anything to the effect that Answers in Genesis or AIG are a bag of dicks, we will take a drink for that. We will also take a drink if you super chat or membership milestone chat anything with any of the kaiju emojis that I have set up just for members. You do have to be a member to take advantage of this. Also, speaking of memberships, we will take a drink for each gifted membership up to, a limit. Basically, if it goes past 30, I'm just going to drink a whole bunch and add 30 to the drink counter. I'm not going to sit there and count it out because that'll take forever. So, let's see. Steve McRae's very logical brain for 100 Argentinian peso says, AIG is a bag. Whoever told Bad Jackson he could rock that mustache. Nice. I'll take a drink. All right. Vishanti said, hey, whose channel got deleted today? Well, first I thought it was a few days ago. Or, like, yesterday. But I believe the answer is Hent Ovind. Who, as of now, I believe, is currently completely off the platform. Which is... Unless there was another other one, and I'm just mixing that up. Vishanti, is that a thing? Are the two of them? So anyway, I lost train of where I was.
Channel's getting deleted.
Oh, yep. So if I screw up the production, so if I fail to unmute someone, or I switch the wrong scene, or something like that, that's called Dapper as a professional. We take a drink for that. And there you go. Now, if you have not been here before, we do have various like fundraising goals. If we can get up to 100%, I will, rather than using my default avatar, the real me, that is, in my next scripted video, I will let you guys vote among my alternate ones. That's the fancy avatar. If we can get it to 200%, I will appear on camera on the next Kent with Bent, which I believe is just Tuesday, wearing a tutu. A nice pink tutu. So let's see. And if it gets to about, I believe, 99%, Bent Hovind, my frequent co-host, gets a free pizza from all y'all. Tubian323 for $5 says, remember, folks, if you thrust your hand into Nazi's eye, it's a Roman massage. Yes. Mr. Cliff for £2 says, AIG, thank you very much. And so now we are at 1%. We are off on our journey to hopefully getting to 100%. Let's make it happen. Also, gifted memberships count. So, Jackson, do you have anything to say before we dive into Bad Jackson telling us all about the upcoming movie Expelled. No intelligence allowed.
Did you say the thing about operating heavy machinery or texting your ex?
Oh, no, I didn't. Yeah, so this is a drinking game, and first of all, you do not have to play along with alcohol or any other intoxicating substance. If you do not want to, you can play along with juice, tea, water, coffee, uh, soda, a vape pen, high-fiving whoever you're watching with, not doing anything. I don't care. It's fine. But if you do choose to play along with any intoxicating substance, please do not afterwards go out, drive a car, fly an airplane, operate heavy machinery, or text your ex. These are all really bad ideas. And
Don't
Jackson
do it.
and myself take neither responsibility nor liability if you do that. You have been warned. I did not skip McRae's. Well, I mean, not actually McRae's, but I did not skip that super chat. I, in fact, read it. So there you go, Fearmonger. All right. Are we ready?
Let's do it.
Here we go.
That's coming out. Go to the website, www.expelledthemovie.com, and you'll see on Darwin's birthday in February, that movie's going to be coming out, and it's going to be showcasing the idea that in higher academia, if you don't follow the Darwinist party line, you're out.
I mean, it was trying to do that, but it mostly failed because most of the people it interviewed did this thing that we in the biz call lying. Yeah. Yeah. One of the more famous examples is one Mark Armitage, the man who has never met paleontology like methods and standards in his entire life, despite pretending to be a paleontologist occasionally, who was not fired for his belief, but was fired because the job he had was just being entirely eliminated. Like, they just weren't going to have that job anymore. Because he was a guy running a microscope lab, and they wanted to close it down. Because it, just wasn't attracting people. So, then he was like, they're shutting me down because of my religion! And he tried to sue them, and they settled out of court with what I believe was an undisclosed amount, and no admission of fault on either side. Which basically meant they just wanted him to go away. So, yeah, that's basically just a sample of what expelled, no intelligence allowed was like. Jackson, are you aware of anyone from that movie who actually turns out to have actually been fired inappropriately for their religious beliefs?
No.
Yeah.
No, not even close. There was Stephen Meyer claiming that he was with him and was it Sternberg, I think, got bullied by the Darwinian, intelligentsia
Oh
because
no.
Sternberg did not let Meyer's paper get peer reviewed before publishing it in a journal.
Yeah, that's actually who we were just talking about before this in the last episode.
Oh yeah, yeah, we did talk about that. So yeah, if you guys, which very dumb, big fat lie, and I believe Charles was saying, Bad Jackson was saying like, oh no, it got peer reviewed. No, it didn't. It just didn't get peer reviewed because that was the whole point. The whole reason that Sternberg got let go from his position was he let this paper through without peer review. It was literally the whole point.
So. I don't know. It happened to me. Happened to Dr.
Did it happen to you, Charles Jackson? Did it really? Because I don't believe you. Because every single one of these that I've been able to look into and actually find details, it turns out, no, that probably wasn't it.
Sternberg, they crucified their own. He was banned from using the collections at the Smithsonian Museum, and so could not continue his research. He ended up going on CNN and
fired,
saying,
yeah, when you're fired from the Smithsonian, they don't let you keep going in and manhandling all their stuff. Because now you're just a security risk.
Yeah, that is usually how firing works, yeah.
Yeah. The Smithsonian has priceless items in there that cannot be replaced. They don't want a disgruntled ex-employee who violated ethical standards for their publishing arm going in and rooting around in their back rooms. Like think about it. Imagine that you had an employee, right? Like, maybe you hired a maid service because you don't want to clean every once in a while, right? So, like, let's say every week or so, you have a maid service come by. And then you find out that one of these maids was actually known to do things like install spyware on, like, people's computers or something. And as far as you can tell, I mean, they didn't really steal anything from anyone. And but still, it's really weird and gross. And so you're like, yeah, I think you're fired. And then that person is like, okay, but can I still have access to your PC? No! No, you can't! That's the situation here.
Look, the word on the street is that creationists are always censoring people. What really happened was I was censored by my own fellows. The
Just take a drink for stories that didn't happen. Jeez. Jackson. Bad Jackson. Being ridiculed out of the room for having completely ridiculous ideas that are at odds with basically all of science isn't being censored, right? It's just like no one's censoring the flat Earth. Well, okay, you could maybe make the argument that by deprioritizing them in search results, maybe YouTube is. But I still disagree with that anyway, because there's a difference between, giving you a megaphone and not giving you a megaphone and silencing you. Those aren't the same thing. But, yeah, like, it's not like academia is silencing the flat Earth. It's just that you don't have any points, and when you do try to make points, they're absurd. Teary words of a king 7 times purified Rana, who's been a member for 19 months, says, maybe he meant Pierre review by his friend Pierre. Alex Markle says, that's not the fun kind of naughty maid. Yeah, well, I mean, that's a different kind of maid that you can hire. Or just try to find one with, your own personal arrangement that might not be monetary. But, yeah, that's a different kind of maid. And you know what? I have a problem with neither kind of maid. Just that's not the kind I was talking about.
evolutionist, and now he's an intelligent design theorist himself. He has come over to our side.
He was
because
already.
of how he was.
Yeah, that's
No, he was one already.
He was one already, yes. And the fact that he wasn't fired for that reason up until the point when he did something completely unethical is actually evidence against the entire thesis of expelled, no intelligence allowed. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $4.99 says, can't let him wander around. He might find the giant skeletons in the back rooms. At least he didn't get the museum ninjas after him. Yeah, the museum ninjas. Do you remember that bit?
I don't think so. I don't know.
I wish I could remember his name, but there's a young Earth creationist dentist who claims that he went around to various museums in Europe, noting how all of the hominin skulls were like badly misarranged so that they looked more ape-like than they really were. And when he pointed this out to the museums in Europe sent assassins after him. And he had to run through Europe dodging the assassins from the museums. Because most museums have an assassin budget, apparently.
Right.
Yeah.
That's definitely real and happened. Yes.
I mean, that story makes everything Ron Wyatt ever did sound completely plausible and totally real. Ugh.
Yeah.
In case you guys don't know who Ron Wyatt is, he is the guy who has claimed to find basically any item of any significance from any part of the Bible. And I'll give one example. So he claims that while excavating at the Garden Tomb outside of Jerusalem, that he found the Ark of the Covenant with the still living blood of Jesus, which actually was haploid because Jesus didn't have 2 parents, he only had a mom, with a apparently mysterious Y chromosome. And that all of this was in the test results that he got back from a lab. He has never released these test results. He's never released photographs of any of this that are actually clear enough to see anything. And the Garden Tomb Association, which administers the tomb, said that they were with him for every stage of his excavation there, and that he found no such thing. And on top of that, by the way, the Garden Tomb is definitely not where Jesus was buried, because it's from the wrong place and was made at the wrong time to have been a tomb where Jesus could have been buried. Ironically, the Tomb of the Holy the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is the more traditional location for Jesus' tomb, which is ascribed to by the Oriental Orthodox, the Eastern Orthodox, and the Catholics, who jointly administer that church. That at least could be the location where Jesus was buried, because it is in fact inside what was Jerusalem at the time, and it was in fact built around the same time that Jesus would have been alive. So, yeah, that's Ron Wyatt. Anyway, I don't even know why we're talking about Ron Wyatt. He's just fun to talk about every once in a while, I guess, because he's just so absurd.
He's a silly goose.
He really is. Like, there's so much. One of my favorites is like, oh, I found where the pillar of fire that was God from Exodus landed on the beach and scorched the sand into solid glass. And you look and it's like, okay, first of all, that's beach rock. And second, every time in the Torah where the presence of God is seen as a fire, it doesn't burn things. Do you not remember the quote-unquote burning bush that wasn't consumed? I mean, way to get wrong both what the beach rock is, as well as how God's pillar of fire is described in the first place. But hey, who cares?
Treated. Well, anyway, that's Dr. Sternberg's story. This is an article from the New York Times just this June.
Whoa.
Look at what's happening. Darwin still rules, but some biologists dream of a paradigm shift. Remember what I said? A paradigm is...
Is this going to be extended evolutionary synthesis, guys, but from, like, the early 2000s? Jackson, you're muted. Jackson is muted, everyone.
Whoops, almost certainly.
Yeah.
This is what I said. Also, something weird keeps happening with my player where like it disappears to the little corner
That is odd.
whenever it starts to play.
Also,
I don't know why that happens.
Ray Elgatubella for $2 says something in what looks like Vietnamese. I'm gonna go with Vietnamese. And here's the thing about Vietnamese. I don't even begin to understand how to read that. Because I have heard people read out Vietnamese from writing, and it doesn't sound anything like what I would have guessed. So I am going to just say that that is Vietnamese for AIG's a bag of dicks, and I'm going to take a drink for it. And I'm sorry, but I'm not going to try. It would just murder the Vietnamese. So yeah, sorry. Triceratops, you already have a bingo? That seems hard to believe.
It's a lens through which you see everything. Of course, all new data that comes in science, I interpret through the lens of creation science. I have a creationary paradigm.
No, that's not how science works. Now, don't get me wrong, right? If you have a well-supported theory and new data comes in, you do first see if it fits in with that theory, and then, if there's nothing extraordinary about it, you probably just go along your way at that point. But fundamentally, theories and paradigms are created from the data, not the reverse. But because as a creationist, Charles Jackson starts with the conclusion and then does not allow new information to come in and in any way affect that conclusion, that is what he does. And now he's projecting that onto basically the rest of everyone. It's not even the first bingo? Oh my goodness. Well, Fearmonger also had one. Lieutenant Fitz of Rage has a second one. Seeing one from Fearmonger earlier. Jeez, wow. Yeah, there's Fearmonger with what looks like it might be the first bingo. Oh, wait, nope, Jillian. Where are you guys getting bingos this early? I need to have a talk with whoever's running this bingo and get harder cards going. This is getting ridiculous. We've only been going for like 10 minutes.
They have an evolutionary paradigm, but they're about to shift the entire nature of the way evolution is. Look, a major revision to Darwin could change an intellectual zeitgeist, or spirit of the time, more than half a century old. You see, they're about to have a big shift. And that's
Hey, Jackson, actually, let's just find out. Let's find out what year Expelled came out. Expelled, no intelligence allowed. We'll just see what year it came out. Okay, 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. Very nice.
That sounds high.
Yeah. Let's see. Now I'm actually curious. Oh, okay, so it's got an 11% critic rating, but a 68% audience rating. So do with that what you will. So this was 2008. Okay, so it is now 2025. Right? So let's see. What is that? 17 years since this speech was given? Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
thereabouts, yeah.
All right. Has there been a major paradigm shift in the past 17 years in evolutionary biology such that the way we've been thinking about biology for the past 100 years has been completely overturned?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Wow. Looks like Jackson's powers of prognostication really, really suck. Let's see. Vladimir Marchenko says Expel did worse than Star Wars Acolyte. I don't even know what that got. Now I'm curious. Star Wars The Acolyte. What did that get? 78 with critics and 19 with audiences. Ouch. So I guess it's also reversed, right? Like the critics loved it and the audiences hated it, whereas Expelled was the other way around. The critics hated it, whereas audiences were like, I didn't see it. Here's the thing.
I mean, I thought it was okay. You know, it was fine. So
I watched Star Wars Episode 8, right? And it came out of the theater after having Ryan Johnson give Finn the exact same character arc, but worse, that he had in the previous movie.
yeah.
And I realized I don't care about Star Wars anymore, like at all. And since then, I basically just haven't watched Star Wars.
Well, I will say, you know, I've kept up with all the Star Wars stuff, and it's, you know, it's been fine. I think I think it's been fine for the most part. Like it's all right. But you're right. The sequel trilogy was not great.
I mean, it killed my enthusiasm for the franchise as a whole. I just
Yeah.
stopped caring. And I was like, I realized I don't care what happens to Finn or Rey or Poe or any of these other people, because I realized that if they're going to reset all of the character development that basically both Rey and Finn had from the first movie, then it doesn't matter what happens to them. There's no actual character progression. There's no actual story. It's just a bunch of flashy images that happen in front of my face in an effort to trick me into thinking there's a story. I don't care about that. So, yep. Hey, don't reverse your character's character arcs in the next thing they're in. Like, don't just have them go through the same character arc. Give them a new one. Like, maybe Finn could have been like, his character arc could have been like learning to care about someone in a romantic way, and that could have been Rose, and then she could have actually been a good character instead of just the excuse for him to go through the same character arc once again. And then also erasing the one interesting thing she did in the movie, which is try to sacrifice herself to stop Finn from doing the thing. Except then she didn't sacrifice herself, and also at first I thought she was a turning traitor because a high-speed collision like that should have been fatal for both of them. The whole thing was a mess. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that because that's just going to make me annoyed. Instead, we're going to watch Charles Jackson, which is also going to make me annoyed, but it's on topic.
I'm not making this stuff up to you. They really are in so much trouble, even they are realizing, guys, we got to do some fancy footwork.
No, which you can tell because in the almost 2 decades since, that hasn't happened. So here's a drink for saying something very stupid. And also, this is just the extended evolutionary synthesis. I'm taking a drink for confirmed prediction. So here's the thing. The extended evolutionary synthesis guys are basically saying, hey, we think evolutionary biologists should take into account things like niche construction, epigenetics, horizontal gene transfer, things like that, right? But you know what the secret is? That is something evolutionary biologists are taking into account.
And have been for decades.
Right. That's it. That's the entire secret. They're just whining about nothing because they want to be iconoclasts. Which, like, okay, fine, they can be iconoclasts if they want to. But until they actually point out something that biologists aren't actually taking into account that does actually matter, there's really no reason to take them seriously. But pop sci headlines need, catchy titles and interesting controversial topics in order to sell.
Gotta get them clicks.
Right, get clicks, sell magazines and whatnot. So yeah, every once in a while, they interview someone who's part of this extended evolutionary synthesis crowd, and they write a headline about how the paradigm is about to shift in evolutionary biology, and then nothing happens.
Hey, any day now. Any day now it's gonna happen.
Right.
Just give it a little bit more time. Any day now.
It's just like fusion power. That paradigm shift is just, a few years away, just like fusion.
And quick, because the whole ship is sinking. Next. Well, here's the way, and I mentioned this, I showed you this last night. Here's the way that the evolutionary tree of life, or our ancestors, our family tree, with all the missing links.
You know, it's weird that you call them a missing link when you're showing them on screen, right? Like,
Zapper, they're not there. What are you talking about? I can't see anything.
the thing is, like,
This is an empty screen.
you could say I don't actually accept these as transitional, but they're clearly also not just missing. They're right there. I'm just going to take a drink because that's an extremely dumb thing to say. Heather talks to randos on Train Spoon for $2 says, Bad Jackson continues to misunderstand paradigms. Yeah, I don't think he can spell paradigm.
It showed up in 2002. Ian Tattersall is a well-known expert on Neanderthals. All the way back to the Sahelanthropus chadensis found in 2002 in Chad, and the Ardipithecus ramidus, Ardipithecus cadava, Auroran tuganensis, all supposed to be really in the same genus, and then since Milford Walpole and the Washington...
Hey Jackson.
Hey.
If two animals are in the same genus, do they have different or the same genus name?
If they're in the same genus, I would imagine they have the same genus name.
So do you think Auroran tuganensis is in the same genus as Ardipithecus?
I do not.
There we go. Let's take a drink for Charles Jackson not understanding what it means to be in the same genus. Why is he so bad at just everything? Like, I really don't get it. They're supposed to be in the same genus. Well, then they would be in the same genus. Ugh. Lady Novelist, Dapper takes 100 chicken-sized horses. Thank you. For $1.99, says Bad Jackson continues to misunderstand logic? Yeah, basically. Which I suppose should be no surprise. Oh well. Come on. I don't know why this happens, but for some reason, it's just YouTube Studio, there we go, just likes to just crash, and it's very annoying. I don't get it. But Lieutenant Matt the Navigator says, for $4.99, you mean General Motors didn't invent practical fusion 5 years ago? They did not. I guess I'll have to wait a while longer for my Marauder. Yeah. You'll probably have to wait a lot longer, honestly. I don't expect to see reliable fusion power within, like, the next few decades. Or possibly even a century. Anonymous Pie says, why is he so bad at everything? Years of practice. You know what? Yeah, that does sound about right. Years and years of practice.
Post and many other researchers say that Chadensis was really just a monkey and didn't have anything to do with us. That would knock all of them out if they're all in the same genus.
Nope. That's not what anyone has ever said.
Mm-hmm.
Ever.
And also, they're not all supposed to be in the same genus. I don't know where he's getting that. It sounds like he's just pulling it out of his rectum. Like, where... I'm just taking a drink. I can't with this. Who in the world ever told him that Sahelanthropus, Auroran, and Ardipithecus were all supposed to be the same genus?
And we're just monkeys.
I mean, they were monkeys.
And he's definitely not using monkey as, like, a
synonym for anthropoidia?
Yeah, no, he's not doing that. He's definitely using it as, like, with a long tail, and is not in hominidae, and not a hominin.
Non-hominid anthropoid, perhaps?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, first, so if by monkey you mean non-hominid anthropoid, then they definitely weren't monkeys. If you do mean anthropoid, then they definitely were monkeys. And, I mean, if humans evolved from apes, which are anthropoids, then they evolved from monkeys. Not any extant monkeys, but the things they evolved from would have been monkeys back when they were alive. So, which is one of my pet peeves. I'm really not a big fan of the whole, like, well, humans didn't evolve from apes. They evolved from an ape-like ancestor. And I know what the point is. The goal is to say humans didn't evolve from any extant apes. Humans didn't evolve from chimpanzees or orangutans or gorillas or bonobos or whatever, right? Or gibbons, for that matter. Okay, but if a clade includes the most recent common ancestor of the current members, as well as all of its descendants and the current members, then humans did evolve from apes, because their common ancestor with chimpanzees was an ape. And the common ancestor of that animal with gorillas, which is the next outgroup, was also an ape, all the way until we get to the common ancestor of the great apes and the lesser apes. That was also an ape. And then before that, okay, now they're no longer apes. But once we get to that common ancestor, yes, that's an ape. And so I think that in trying to clarify what is meant in terms of humans not evolving from modern apes, we have unfortunately obscured the holistic or phylogenetic reality of the situation. Steve Hawking's Prophet of Evolution by Writer for $2 says, Bat Jackson continues to just misunderstand. So that's one of the things, is like, I am not sure to what degree he misunderstands and to what degree he is just lying, right? With certain other creations, it's easier for me to tell, right? Like when John Sanford pretends that humans aren't subject to natural selection or genetic drift, I know he's just lying, right? I know that. Or when he pretends that he can calculate the time to mitochondrial Eve by using the average divergence from the consensus genome rather than the maximum, I know he's just lying. He knows better. He's a PhD in genetics. He definitely knows better. But with Charles Jackson, it's hard to say, right? Because his credentials aren't fake, but they're also not quite in the topic. But by getting them, he's clearly smart enough to figure this out if he wants to. So I really don't know with him. And I waffle back and forth between I think he's just dishonest and I think he's just a moron. And I don't know, Jackson, good Jackson, what do you think? You are muted, by the way.
I mean, I he's probably just. I would say he probably has, expertise in his own field, and he just doesn't know how to apply that elsewhere. I don't know, which
Fair
would put
enough.
him in the dumb category, I guess.
Hey, I mean that's fair. I mean, there's certainly plenty of evidence that Charles Jackson is a very dumb individual.
Yeah.
The Australopithecus afarensis, the famous Lucy fossil right in the middle there, and then right after it, Australopithecus africanus, a million years later, according to their dating systems, and yet, after a million years, it unevolved. It actually, evolution went backwards and it became more like a chimp.
What does that mean?
Do not know.
I don't even know what he means by that. Like, by what objective metrics is Australopithecus africanus more like a chimp than Australopithecus afarensis is? And further, let's remember, between humans and chimpanzees, the more derived group in terms of both morphology and genetics are the chimpanzees. Chimpanzees are significantly more derived than humans are. So, if you become more chimp-like, that means you're actually going farther and farther away from the common ancestor of humans and chimps, not that you're going closer to it. So I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
Well, because clearly we evolved directly from chimps. We don't share a common ancestor with them.
No, you didn't. That's not how human evolution works. Or just
That's
evolution in general.
That's what he said, so it must be true.
I'm taking
obviously.
a drink. That's very, very, very dumb. I hate it. Thank you.
And that was their story. Yeah, it appears to be in the wrong part of the fossil record, or at least it appears that it did exactly the opposite thing that evolution should do, but that's okay. Evolution just went backwards for a million years, that's all.
Oh, I want to point out for a sec, I totally forgot. I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before, but when he says evolution went backward, I again, I just genuinely don't know what he means unless he thinks that we are descended from chimps. But what Africanus is by most phylogenies I've seen, Africanus is on the line to the Paranthropines. So in that sense, Australopithecus africanus is a transitional species between more basal Australopiths and the Paranthropines, which were more derived.
Right. Although not in the same way as modern humans.
Right. And so like they went off. They were on their own evolutionary trajectory. Um, whereas like the um Australopithecus afarensis is on the line towards, or on the lineage towards more modern humans, and so like neither of them are yeah, neither of them are going backwards. They are diverging in their own ways. One is diverging more towards the robust uh paranthropines, whereas the other one is becoming more gracile
Right.
as we are. So yeah, has nothing to do with going backwards in evolution. Nothing to do with that.
Uh, for 199, Lieutenant Matt the Navigator says, by a very scientific criteria, vibes. Yeah, creationists,
True.
they actually do a lot based on vibes. I think I talked about it on Saturday. We talked about the cognitum, which is just creationist speak for like, well, I kind of think it feels like it should be this way. I'm going to say that it is because of the cognitum, which is just like Latin for like, I think it's that way, so that way it is. Like, yeah, that's just you coming up with it looks like, which, in case anyone doesn't know, looks like is like the mating call of the pseudoscientist crank. Right? That's why people are like, oh, see that rock on Mars? Looks like the shell of a crab. There must be living creatures on Mars, and they're crabs, it turns out. Or why you get someone who
Hey,
looks
everything turns into crab eventually, so that,
yeah,
that tracks.
even Mars apparently. Or you get like what's his name from Mudfalls University, looking at like an island that kind of vaguely looks dolphin shaped. Like, see, that was a giant dolphin. Or he looks at a cave that's taller than it is wide and decides that that's a fossil vagina. So, yeah. And then you get creationists who are like, well, these kind of look like they're in the same kind, so I guess they are. Yeah, that's the hallmark of pseudoscience.
Cows and goats are not in the same kind, despite them being the same family, which by like every other kind is like the metric. But for them, people tend to think of goats as separate from cows, so we just kind of put them separately.
Yep. Literally an actual example from Answers in Genesis. They put cows and sheep in one kind and sheep and goats in the other kind. Literally because like people just kind of think of them that way. Oh, okay.
Problem, you see. And then the Homo habilis, or handyman, which they have now found in the same layer as Homo erectus. They used to think habilis turned into erectus, and erectus turned into us.
Okay, and this is the important question, which of those also appears lower in the stratum?
It would be habilis. Homo
That's
habilis.
habilis. Yeah, that's crazy. It's almost like Dapper, were your grand dinosaurs around before you?
Actually, as it turns out, yes.
And you also existed with them for some period of time?
Yes.
Oh, oh my god.
Yep.
Dapper, how can that be possible? That doesn't even, that's not real. That can't be.
I feel like that's just how time works. Like pretty normally.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, okay. All right. I guess I've changed my understanding of time, because it sounds like Charles Jackson is saying if two things exist simultaneously at one point in time, it is impossible for those things to be like temporally related.
Hmm.
That's what it sounded like he's saying.
It did sound like that. I don't think that's true though.
Well, well, I mean, I guess that's possible.
All right, here we go.
And just this August, they found these two in about the same date, same layer, so they realized they were the same, or at least lived at the same time. So one.
Okay, those are very different conclusions there, Chuck. What?
Hey, Dapper, did you know we might be the same or have just lived at the same time?
Yeah, yeah. Apparently, I'm gonna take another drink. I don't even think I even need to explain that those are very different concepts.
My cat and my dog are the same. I mean, or also lived at the same time. Yeah.
It's hard to say which one it could possibly be, really. I mean, contemporaneous, contemporaneity, being identical, could go either way.
Couldn't have evolved into the other one, and Homo
Nope, that's still not how that works. Organisms that have the characteristics that we use to define Homo habilis in terms of anatomy, because remember, they're extinct, so we can't just run genetics on them, could indeed have given rise to a derived population, while another population retained more basal features and therefore did not get a new designation for a new species. That's a perfectly normal thing that happens in evolution today, never mind way back in the past.
ergaster, National Geographic said in 1997, was the same thing as Homo erectus. So we couldn't have evolved from that either.
Well, so I mean, it depends on what you mean by same, right? There is some debate and legitimate debate as to whether ergaster and erectus should be considered the same species, because erectus had a very wide distribution. They went everywhere from Africa to down to Indonesia. So they had a very, very wide distribution. And as a result of that, they have clinal variation. So some populations are taller, some are shorter. They vary with their geographic location. And so as a result of that, there's been big debates over should we consider the ones in the Caucasus region to be like Homo georgicus, or should that just be Homo erectus also? Same for Homo ergaster. Is Homo ergaster just the African Homo erectus, or does it deserve its own species designation? The answer is it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I mean,
but these populations are
ultimately,
still
really,
identifiable and distinct.
right?
Like, whether or not Homo ergaster and Homo georgicus should be subsumed under Homo erectus, they're still distinct populations with their own distinct morphological traits, which might warrant a subspecific designation.
Mhm.
And even if it doesn't do that, they're still distinct morphotypes within this wider group of hominins. Because, hey, Jackson, did you know that species are
Yes.
just kind of a human construct that humans came up with, and they're not actually like a super, like a thing in nature that objectively exists?
Are you telling me that we are dyed-in-the-wool species nominalists up in here?
Yeah, we are. I know that a
Yes.
friend of the channel, Zach B. Hancock, is not, but look, he's just wrong. And that's okay. He's allowed to be wrong about whether species are real.
I've read Speciation by Jerry Coyne and H. Alan Orr, and the arguments that they use, not sure about Zach's arguments, but the arguments that they use, that Coyne and Orr use, are really not very compelling. They refer to to these naturalists who went to these tribes in Central and South America, and the tribes had a similar, not identical, but a similar number of birds that they considered separate species, quote quote, as to what the naturalists considered, and they're like, aha, there, don't you see? Which just kind of argues for similarity in um dividing things up across cultures, right? So as a
Right.
basic human trait, really.
Right. That
So
just means that the things that humans find significant are the things that humans find significant. Woo! Good job,
yeah,
everybody. We did it.
yeah, I
We figured
wasn't.
out that humans have psychological commonalities among them.
Yeah, I
Hey.
wasn't super impressed with that one. The other one they used, I believe, was species have to be real, because what else are we talking about then? Which I- is I don't know if he's taking a hard stance on philosophic realism for everything in that case. We can't talk
That
about
would be quite the
concepts unless they
stance.
exist.
That would be quite the stance. That would be.
Yeah,
That, what would that do to linguistics? Because basically all languages are just social constructs that don't exist in the same way that rocks or
actually,
trees do.
I have it right here. I actually don't remember, but that was the the third one I remember specifically. I could be.
They reinvented kinds, says Goop23. All right, well, we're gonna hit play and
Uh,
we're gonna get a little bit more Jackson in.
oh, the argument from common sense. Yeah, that was one of the.
That's just cognitum.
Mm,
Nope,
mhm.
not even gonna give that one airtime. I'm just gonna hit play.
And so, and Heidelbergensis and Antecessor are really the only missing links on this chart that haven't been disqualified.
literally nothing that Charles Jackson said would actually disqualify any of these organisms from being part of the story of human evolution.
Yeah.
Even if he were right about literally everything he just said, none of that would matter. Except maybe when he said that, like, what was it? Ramapithecus or something? Or not Ramapithecus, Sahelanthropus. It was like, it was just a monkey, which doesn't mean anything. But even if we take that to mean it was a non-hominid anthropoid, okay, so that's one that you eliminated if you're right about everything else you said. So no, Charles, you haven't done anything to invalidate these missing links. All you've done is shown your ignorance of what taxonomy is, which, you know, not a great look.
From being in our direct lineage, and those are probably going.
Oh, I'm sorry, from being in our direct lineage. Hey, Chuck, we don't actually expect to be able to identify any fossil organisms as being in a direct lineage to extant organisms for the fundamental reason that we're just more likely to have found a near relative to the direct ancestor, I can talk, than we are to have found the actual ancestor. And even if we do find the direct ancestor, we can't really demonstrate it very easily with a fossil taxon. And further, when you are constructing a phylogenetic tree, all of the taxa in consideration end up as terminal branches, right? Tips. You fundamentally, mathematically can't actually recover any species under consideration at a node between two species, even if in reality that's where it would belong. And why do we construct phylogenies that way? Well, because again, we're more likely to have found a close relative to the common ancestor than the actual common ancestor. So it's the safer way to do it. So once again, this is just Charles Jackson showing us that he does not know the first thing about taxonomy or phylogeny. And that's one of the things, right? If you can't articulate an idea well enough that someone who holds the idea would accept that you have given their idea a fair representation, you don't know enough to critique that idea. At least not on like an intellectual ground. You might be able to critique it on terms of like when the idea has been implemented by people you agree are implementing it, then bad things have happened, therefore we shouldn't implement your idea, even if I don't fully understand what your idea is. Okay, maybe that could work. But that's not one of the things that's open to us, because you don't implement taxonomies. So, like, that kind of argument might work in politics, right? So, like, if I said, oh, hey, I don't think that adding a whole bunch of new tariffs is a good idea. You know, like, well, have you understood all of the nuances of all the new tariffs that are proposed? And I say, no, but generally speaking, when a whole bunch of new tariffs are imposed, these results happen, and they're bad. Okay, sure, I haven't understood all the nuances of that tariff argument, but I still probably have a good case there. But that's not at all the same kind of argument here, right? Because you don't implement these. You can't look at the consequences of this phylogeny other than just it being what it is. All right, here we go. We are going to take a quick break. I'm going to go refresh my glass of gin here. Not just gin, but a lot of it's gin. And Jackson, we will be back in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
All right. See ya on the other side.
Next time on Star Trek Lexington.
Captain's Log, Stardate 7120.1. We are en route to the Temujin system at high warp. We were originally ordered by Admiral Stoker in a strangely worded message to investigate the third planet for Tilakal ruins. It seems that that's all we do lately. The Admiral may be developing a bit of an obsession. Regardless, while we were en route, we received a distress call from the USS Boca Raton, an Archer-class scout ship with a primarily human crew. They claimed that they were attacked by Kzinti slavers, and they launched their escape pods in the vicinity of Temujin 3. Our mission, as important to the Admiral as it may be, is less important than a rescue, which takes priority. Temujin 3 is a Class L planet, with an atmosphere of mostly nitrogen and only 15% oxygen, produced mostly by a microbe called sand plankton. The planet has almost no standing bodies of water and frequent sandstorms. If the crew has made it to the surface, they're probably still alive, but in need of serious aid.
Okay, we are back. Welcome back, everybody. Hey, in case you guys don't know, this channel is something that I really like doing. I have been doing it full time for years now. And that started out very much not in the black, and you guys have made it so that that is no longer the case. However, that is something that is always precarious and always subject to change. And so, if you are someone who likes this channel, who's enjoying the content, and who wants to see it keep going, the best way to do that is by supporting the channel financially. Now, I do want to say, if you can't afford to, and I know that that is a big concern for a lot of people, especially lately, I get it, and I don't want money you can't afford. But if you can afford it, and you are enjoying this, and you want to help keep it going, there are some great ways to help with that. Patreon and the channel memberships are two of the best ways. I get to keep the most of the Patreon, and that starts at only $1 a month. You can go all the way up to like $100 a month if you want to. There are 15% discounts for going annually instead of monthly. The memberships start at $1.99. Both of them give you access to my special Discord server that's just for supporters. Both of them give you early access to scripted videos. One just came out, I think, like on Thursday last week. I'm hoping to have another one out around Thursday or Friday this week. And that's stuff that, like, there's months and months of early access just sitting there waiting for you. Also, the memberships give you access to the channel emojis, as well as a little green name with a symbol after your name. So if that's something you find fun, that's there too. If a monthly or an annual pledge isn't your thing, there's a merch store that's under this video. There's also an Amazon wish list, linked in the description. And yeah, there's a number of great ways to help support the channel. And also, just like and share this video and comment on my videos. That really helps out, because that brings in new viewers, and new viewers, more ad revenue, and it can be more people to convert to patron or members. So, and also, if you like the membership program and you just want to spread the love, you can just gift some memberships. And some non-zero percentage of gifted memberships do actually later turn into regular renewing subscriptions that people have because they enjoyed the memberships. So that also helps in that way, and that it can, up the number of viewers who turn to become regular members. So yeah, feel free to help out in any of those ways, because yeah, I'm expecting it to be harder to run this channel in the next few years, just from a financial standpoint, because prices are going to be going up. So anything you can do to help will be greatly appreciated. All right, Jackson, do you have anything you want to say right before we get right back into it?
You're the best.
Thank you. All right, here we go.
Since the other ones have gone. Homo neanderthalensis, everyone realizes now that Cro-Magnons and Neanderthals were people.
I don't know what that means. People,
When you say, yeah, what are we talking about?
people isn't a scientific category, right? Personhood is an ethical and moral category in which the members of that category have certain rights and responsibilities that they can levy against or are obligated to perform for other members of that category. Right? So, it's not a scientific category. There's no, like, DNA test you can do for personhood. Now, even within moral and ethical frameworks, we don't have a really great way of assessing personhood, right? We have some vague notions, but, like, yeah, do I think, well, first of all, Cro-Magnon man is literally just Homo sapiens from Europe, right? It's just Homo sapiens. As for Homo neanderthalensis, Neanderthals, I think that if one were to appear today in front of, a bunch of humans, that those humans would probably treat it like a person and find that, putting it in a cage would be kidnapping, forcing it to do labor would be slavery, killing it would be murder, things like that, right? So I'm not going to disagree that most likely Neanderthals should have been considered persons or people, but that doesn't mean anything from a scientific standpoint, and I can't demonstrate that on the basis of, like, their bones or something. So when talking about human evolution, it's completely meaningless as to whether or not you think that they were people or not. I'm open to the personhood of certain non-ape animals. I think there are reasonable cases to be made for great ape, elephant, and cetacean personhood. Do I accept all those cases? Not necessarily, but I think that all of the people who argue for them have, not absolutely ridiculous arguments that, should be examined and, carefully considered by society. Okay.
And so we don't talk about them as being missing links anymore, even if you're an evolutionist.
We don't talk about them at all, actually. You're not allowed to talk about Cro-Magnon anymore.
Yeah, well, there is that. Yeah, we don't really talk
They
about
just
that.
disappeared. We definitely don't talk about
Well,
it.
or we just realized that they were just Homo sapiens, so we stopped giving them a special name. As for Neanderthals,
I mean, I guess.
the reason that they're not talked about as being ancestral to humans isn't because they're people. It's because they're not ancestral to modern humans. So, okay, yeah, they're a sister group. But you know what you can't have a sister group without? Evolution from a common ancestor. So the very existence of Neanderthals, while they're absolutely not ancestral to Homo sapiens, is on its own only explicable through evolution. So there's still evidence of human evolution from pre-Homo sapiens ancestors. I'm just going to take a drink for him just defeating himself with his own stupid argument.
This is just the kind of thing that's happening to them, and why they're getting so desperate that they've realized they've got to change their story quick, because we creationists are making mincemeat out of them in public because of the...
When has that ever happened?
I can't think of an example. You know what I can think of examples is creationists having little meetings in like churches instead of at like, scientific symposiums, stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
could be that.
Even if you think that a creationist did well in a debate, which has happened, here's a fun fact. Science isn't decided in debates in, like, lecture halls with audiences. It's decided in the literature. Oh, drink for Mothra, which is one of the things I forgot to say. If Mothra comes by audibly, or Godzilla, we take a drink for Mothra. Or Godzilla. So take a drink for Mothra.
silly things they're saying. Next. Well, now here's Dr. Donald Johanson, who in 1974 discovered the Lucy fossil. He said, nobody really places a great deal of faith in any human phylogenetic tree or human evolutionary story of life tree. He said this in 1995, 20 years after he discovered the Lucy fossil. So,
okay. Chuck. What that means is there are a bunch of competing hypotheses for exactly how closely related various hominins are to each other. But fundamentally, their bare existence is a fulfillment of an evolutionary prediction from all the way back with Charles Darwin. There is no reason to expect any such animals to exist apart from human common ancestry with other apes. So it actually doesn't matter how much confidence you have in any particular phylogeny. You know what none of the phylogenies show? Humans being a complete outgroup to all apes, including the hominins. Which is what it should show if there's any shred of truth to the idea of human special creation. But that's not what any of them show. Which means even though, yeah, any single one, probably not the highest confidence in that exact topology, the commonality between all of them is that humans emerge nested well within the hominids, and specifically within the hominins. They all agree on that. Which means that while the details of their topology might be very much up for debate, and they are, the overall picture of these representing parts of the story of human evolution and their the common ancestry of humans with other apes, that's not ever one of the options up for debate. Because all the phylogenies agree that humans nest well within that group. So way to cherry pick.
even he thinks that these things are not real stories. Next.
Well, what does that mean? Do you mean true stories? Because all phylogenies are hypotheses, right? And some tree is the correct one, but we're never going to have like omniscient knowledge to say exactly which one it definitely is. It's always going to be a probabilistic thing. But when all of the topologies agree in one particular thing, that makes that thing very likely to be true. So while, yeah, any one topology of the family tree of hominins, fair chance that there's something wrong with it, the basic outline, no, we got that pretty well down. Oh god, why are we looking at the reptilian? Oh, this is about to be even more painful because he's about to talk about dinosaurs. Okay. Hey, if you want a super chat to donate to the Dapper Gets Children's Chewable Morphine Tablets Fund, go for it.
This is a prognostication by evolutionists of what might have happened if the dinosaurs never went extinct.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of is, but it's very dumb and not really something to be taken seriously. It's just a stupid what if. And the humanoid dinosauroid thing is way too human-like. There's no good reason to think that that's what would happen to dinosaurs. I hate this.
After all, according to evolution, they were the ruling species. Reptiles, the age of reptiles, the Jurassic, the Mesozoic. If the dinosaurs hadn't gone extinct, they would have evolved to be the most intelligent ruling species. Instead, we did, because we evolved from rats.
But no reason.
Here's what they said: your might.
Yeah, and also humans didn't evolve from rats. The common ancestor of rats and humans split off sometime probably around the end of the Cretaceous. Whoever told Charles Jackson that humans evolved from rats? What I think actually happened is that he looked at a reconstruction of some like basal metatherian, which was probably roughly shrew-like, since shrews are some of the most basal metatherians. And he, not knowing the difference between shrews and rats in the first place, was just kind of like, yeah, that looks like a rat. I guess they're saying humans evolved from rats. Russian preheated uranium decay. Keller for 1999 says, Children's Chewable Morphine Fund. Thank you very much. That might get me a half a tablet. Because I don't know if you know, but chewable morphine, man, those things are expensive.
Have been. We might have actually been lizard people.
Again, dinosaurs.
What do you mean would have been?
Not lizard. Well, yeah, first of all, that just wouldn't be humans. And again, dinosaurs aren't lizards anyway. So even if you did have a dinosaur person, it wouldn't be a lizard. I'm going to take a drink. I hate every moment of this. Jackson, why did I agree to do this?
For thrills and cash money?
Yeah, you're right. Josh McGee's for $10 says, for the chewable NSAID fund, thank you very much. I'm sure that will get me another quarter tablet. Goodness, this is... I did not know this video was going to be this painful. That's rough.
So after National Geographic came out with this interesting article about what...
Once again, the great peer-reviewed journal, National Geographic, the arbiter of what is and is not science. Do you think that he has like a National Geographic kink or something? Because it's never appropriate when he brings them up, but he does it all the time.
Kent does call it national pornographic, so I mean,
they have been known to show, topless human females. So maybe that is it. Maybe that's just, maybe when Charles Jackson was, like 14 or 15, his parents were really strict and he couldn't find a way to sneak in out like a Playboy. But, oh man, they didn't check the National Geographic because that's just a science magazine. And there he was, looking at pictures of, topless humans. Maybe that was his thing.
Dun, dun, dun.
I'm sure that actually is like the story of certain people who grew up in strict evangelical households. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $4.99 says, does this man think that episode of Voyager is real? Yes, Ancient Origin. Then again, he probably thinks Threshold was a good episode. Oof. Oh man, that's rough. In case you guys don't know, Ancient Origin was an episode of Voyager. in which the Voyager encountered actual dinosaurs, and they were like a spacefaring species who had escaped from Earth towards the end of the
Nice.
Cretaceous, having detected the asteroid. And they were bizarrely supposed to be hadrosaurs, even though their anatomy was extremely incompatible with that. But you know what? Whatever, it's fine. And then Aiden's Miscellany for $10 says, ever seen Attack of the Killer Shrew? Speaking of misunderstanding science, but at least that movie is fun, unlike this. I have not seen Attack of the Killer Shrews. That is not one I'm familiar with. I am familiar with Night of the
also
Lepus. Have you seen Night of the Lepus?
Night of the Lepus?
Yeah.
Is that about a barnacle?
No, it's about rabbits. Because they leap.
I
Yeah.
was thinking Lepas, Lepus. I don't
Sure.
or Lepus. I don't know how to pronounce.
So it turns out that, according to the story, like, weird, like, chemical runoff with, like, growth hormone has been washing into, like, the river and making the rabbits grow gigantic, and they go on a crazy murder spree. Except that a large portion of the movie is just regular rabbits hopping around doing rabbit things on little miniature house sets. And it is absurdly adorable and so hard to be scary because they're just adorable rabbits hopping around on a very obviously miniature set. And you just go,
That's
"Aw,
awesome.
they're so
I love
cute."
that.
And then every once in a
I
while, they cover them in fake blood because they just killed someone.
I do love that. I watched a movie a few years ago called Llamas from Space,
Ooh.
and in that movie it was just a normal llama, and someone had like uh CGI'd over its eyes like red glowing eyes, but it's clearly just a normal llama,
Oh
and he could
well.
shoot lasers every so often whenever he like turned his
Ooh.
head. So yeah.
Whenever you haven't been studying your Llama Torah enough. Deplorable Elk Nanovirus for 15 shekels says, why not watch Expel 2008 with the lie correcting subtitles? P.S. You ruined the joke last time by mispronouncing pelagic tunicates. I'm not entirely sure what joke it was. I'm sorry. Wait, is there a place that has like lie correcting subtitles as like a thing? Is that like a
I I don't I don't even know how you would do that. Like, I mean, I guess you'd have to have someone who like watched it and like wrote the subtitles out beforehand. I guess you could do that, but
yeah? I mean, I
I mean,
could do it if I wanted to. I don't, but
yeah,
I could make a cut of that just has that. It would be illegal to distribute in most cases, but like I could
right,
produce such a
yeah,
thing. Um,
yeah.
Lady Novelist Tapper takes 100 chicken-sized horses for $1.99 and says, Bad Jackson has a Nat Geo kink. It has been noted. All right, well now you know what to do for your next like Jackson slash fiction, which I'm sure is coming up, and I don't really need to read that.
If the dinosaurs never had gone extinct, I did see this very same picture in the grocery store on the front of the National Enquirer while I was buying groceries saying, lizard people found in the Amazon. They'll do.
Wow,
I don't.
the world famous, always true National Enquirer. Yeah,
Yeah. Also, that seems more like a Weekly World News headline than a National Enquirer headline, because National Enquirer is usually like nonsense about celebrities and not nonsense about cryptids. That's more of a Weekly World News kind of a thing. So I'm going to take a drink for stories that didn't happen. I'm pretty sure you got your tabloids mixed up there, Charles. My Unfinished Journey for $6.66 says, Hail Nero, Hail Daps, and Good Jacks, and hail our shrew-like ancestors. Hail indeed. And Ave, my unfinished journey, which is an ecclesiastical Latin pronunciation for hail. Probably would have been closer to Ave in actual classical Latin, but you know what? Who cares? Sometimes I want to go ecclesiastical on it.
Blame National Geographic for that. Even Richard Dawkins, the famous atheist who wrote the book The God Delusion, The Selfish Gene.
I really hate whenever they bring up Richard Dawkins, because then I end up having to defend the guy, and I really don't want to defend Richard Dawkins on anything, but whatever. Richard Dawkins, he did some good work, but overall, I think he's one of the worst things to have happened to like the discussion around things like atheism and agnosticism and theism in a while. Also, I mean, he's a terrible, terrible, terrible human being
yeah.
who's excused, like child abuse and who's a horrible transphobe, and yeah, is now embracing quote cultural Christianity, apparently because it gives him an excuse to be a bigot, which is
I mean, he,
just great.
in fairness, again, in fairness to him, he kind of always did that. I saw a documentary years ago where he was still doing the bigotry thing because it was just in a different context. Before it was before trans people were invented,
Of
and
course.
so he was what was it? It was about like he said, "Oh yes, I much prefer the bells of a church to any of the sounds from a mosque." So it's like, yeah, he's always used that as his like bigotry cudgel. He's just turning it on
Good.
trans people now. So
I actually don't find most church bells to be that aesthetic in terms of like how they sound. They're just bells.
I honestly like, and the real question is, does he even? Does it matter? He's just, it's
I mean, look, I'm not going to say you can't have an aesthetic preference for one sound over the other, but like, yeah, if you're using that as your excuse to be like shitty to Muslims, that's not okay.
He actually has said that, and the blind watchmaker, he said, look, any evolutionist who's foolish enough to actually guess where evolution is going to go next, it isn't worth their salt. And so, but guessing is silly. But anyway, this is what they thought might happen.
Okay, wait, hold on a second. So there's a very obvious difference between like fun hypotheticals and trying to rigorously determine where a population is actually going to, which way they're going to adapt, like which ways along a. I mean, in fairness, you can do it to some extent.
Yeah, in the
right?
very short
Given,
term, you can.
right? Yeah, given a certain set of selective pressures, if you know the fitness landscape well enough, you can make some predictions about where these populations are potentially going to go. But like what he's saying is like long term, you have no idea what's going to happen. You don't know what sort of like contingencies are going to arise that shape the evolutionary history of some group. You just can't predict these sorts of things. But like obviously, Charles Jackson is abusing the statement because he always does.
Right. What Dawkins is not saying there is that you can't make a fun speculative evolution project. You can. That's fine. Because you're not trying to say that this is really what's going to happen, right? Like, if you watch The Future is Wild from the Discovery Channel, which is a future speculative evolution TV show that's trying to teach you about how evolution works through, like, a fictionalized account of the future evolution of animals, well, just life on Earth. Even in that show, they're very clear, like, we can't actually say that this is how evolution is going to go. This is just a fun exercise that is helping us explain biology and evolution. Okay, cool. Lady novelist Dapper takes 100 chicken-sized horses for $4.99 says, considering the young Earth creationist obsession with bananas, it pretty much writes itself, which... Whew. Although, to be fair, I do know at least one internet-famous atheist who also seems to have an obsession with bananas. So, it's not just the creationists with the banana obsession. Hello, TJ.
That is a very old callback, Dapper.
I was still never going to forget that entire debacle.
I wish I could forget that, honestly. I'm upset that you made me remember this.
Welcome back to Jackson's Consciousness, the Banana Man story.
No, it was in like there was a silhouette. It was like it was locked, and then you just unlocked that silhouette, and now it's back.
Oh, man. Oh, we forgot Willow. Jackson, did you watch the actual video?
Mercifully not, but I'm aware of it.
Okay. Joshua Geese for $5 says, actually, Onka says, AIG are a bag of Richard Dawkins. I will take a drink. Thank you very much. All right, here we go.
Next. Here's that Time magazine we were talking about a little bit yesterday, October 9th of 2006, not long ago. Let's check a little bit of the stuff here, and I'm going to show you one of their favorite things in the past 2 decades.
Do you think Charles Jackson is ever going to cite an actual peer-reviewed source? Ever?
No.
Okay. Because even when he cites real scientists, he usually cites them from pop-sci interviews, which is infuriating. My Unfinished Sock says, don't mix up your tabloids, like and share instead. Absolutely, My Unfinished Sock. Can't disagree.
That is now failing them and falling apart in front of their eyes, and that is the DNA testing. Next.
What does that
Dr.
mean?
Owen Lovejoy, who is the head of the anthropology department at Kent State, said in this article in Time magazine of October of 2006, he said, it says, Lovejoy is more dismissive about claims that ancestors of chimps and humans interbred, arguing that using mutation rates in the genome to time evolutionary changes is extraordinarily imprecise.
Okay,
Wait, when was this article come out? What year is that?
he said 2006.
In 2006? I'd be really surprised.
But
I'd be really surprised about the imprecision of that. I mean, we had a pretty decent idea of when it happened back in like the 90s.
yeah, and we've since refined it. But also, what I'm curious about is, what point is Charles Jackson going to make on the basis of Lovejoy being skeptical of the reliability of molecular clocks?
Yeah.
Like, what? Okay, so let's run through it. So let's say the molecular clocks are off, and it actually wasn't as long between humans and chimps as we thought. Okay, so they still share a common ancestor. Or the other way, let's say that we were spot on. Okay, good. No problem then. Well, let's say it's a lot longer ago. Okay, they still shared a common ancestor then. Like, what scenario is the alleged unreliability of molecular clocks problem for evolution in terms of whether or not it actually happened? I don't know what his argument could possibly be. Lubalar says, if Bad Jackson cites an actual study correctly, we'll all faint from shock. Yeah, probably.
Right.
Mine Finished Journey says, I'm concerned that you know so much about tabloids. I mean, I feel like that's just one of those things that you learn growing up going to grocery stores in the United States, is which tabloids are roughly which.
Also, I worked at a grocery store, so I was regularly coming into contact with them. So
Fearmonger says, what the F is Jackson's underlining / circling names on that page? Is he just doodling on the page and pretending he's taking notes? I think he's giving himself visual reminders as to who said what. I think that's just it.
maybe.
Using mutation rates in the genome to time.
I've never heard non-creationists say genome.
Yeah, it is really weird because he says gene. That's what the word genome uses. Is
Right.
based on
Right.
gene. So why would you say he doesn't say gen? Doesn't say you have 20,000 gens in your body. It says genes.
Yeah.
So why did he say genome? Like what the heck is going on here?
I mean, it's not a really big deal. It doesn't make him more or less right. It's just weird. And I only hear it from creationists. And it's not just him.
It's like evidences.
Yeah, although that's just a
Another word they
wider...
like to say.
That's a wider Christian apologetics thing.
I guess that's fair. Yeah.
Time evolutionary changes is extraordinarily imprecise.
Again, it's extraordinary, not extraordinary. I know it's spelled extraordinary, but it's pronounced extraordinary. I'm just going to take a drink for Charles Jackson trying... Apparently, I think he's actually just trying to sound smarter than he is by overpronouncing words and just saying them wrong. You know what it reminds me of? It's like that guy who goes to the Mexican restaurant and tries to order everything with like his fake Mexican accent, but he's actually really bad at it. And he also doesn't really know any Spanish. So it just comes across as him making fun of people at the restaurant. That's the vibe I get from Charles Jackson. Like the guy who goes in and says, I want dos cervezas, por favor. Like, okay, thanks. Great. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $4.99 says, if he was in a different denomination, he'd be having a gin and tonic. Actually, I don't know if he's in a denomination that's like no booze. Most Christian denominations are not I guess I can't say that. Most Christians belong to denominations that do not forbid alcohol consumption. In fact, most Christians belong to denominations that require alcohol consumption under certain circumstances. So, yeah. But I don't know, because I mean, if he is he's the kind of guy who would be part of a denomination that does no alcohol, like some Baptists and whatnot. But look, the Bible's pretty open about alcohol at least sometimes being an okay thing. And so, yeah, teetotaler denominations of Christians are just weird to me. Hank says, professional Magnon, for $5.55 reduce, science, observe, collate, experiment, test, predict, hypothesize, repeat, etc. Creation science, narrate slideshows in church annex, insult Darwin. Yeah, that does basically sum up the difference between their two different approaches to methodology.
I'll explain a little bit of what Dr. Lovejoy and the other evolutionists are talking about
Oh, good.
when they talk about using mutations to time evolutionary history events. Next. Here is this article that we looked at yesterday from the Washington Post, but I want to zero in on something, a different aspect of it tonight. It's mentioning there's the Sahelanthropus chadensis, just a year ago in the Washington Post, the 7-million-year-old Tamai skull unearthed in Chad in 2001 may have belonged to a line of non-hybrids that were not human ancestors. Now, the evolutionists began
That is a really weird sentence, but okay.
to think, well, the missing links aren't showing up, and we're having all these.
No one has ever been thinking that because they are showing up all over the place in Africa. Like, it's this weird projection that I just don't get, where he's just imagining motives for people that don't even make sense. Can you imagine a field of paleontology that's doing, like, better than human evolution in terms of just the plethora of relevant specimens and species that we have available to us? Human evolution is one of the most well-documented lineages in terms of evolution in all of life. It is absurd the degree to which we have transitional fossils for Homo sapiens and its ancestry. Like,
Which, for other lineages, when you find, there's no. I was looking at this just this week. When like paleontologists in South America find, um, like a titanosaur vertebra, for instance, they're pretty content to say it was in like a, 10 to 15 million year range for the age.
mhm.
For humans, though, for human fossils, we go out of our way. We like bend over backwards to like pin down as precise an answer as possible for when this thing lived.
We often get within
Uh,
10,000 years, like a 10,000
right.
range.
Yeah.
Never mind a 15 million year range. It is. It would be hard for me to imagine what an idealized but still realistic fossil record could possibly look like in a way that would make it more complete and better attested than the human fossil record, right? If it were any
I mean,
better,
only like phytoplankton do better, really.
yeah, among vertebrates, if it were any better, it would start to become suspicious.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why are these animals so well preserved and so numerous? Might be an alien conspiracy. Get Giorgio on the phone.
Troubles, and we can't prove that mutations actually make things better.
We actually can very much prove that mutations increase fitness. There's this little thing you might have heard of called the Lenski long-term experiment, or just, observing animals in the wild as they colonize new habitats. I'm gonna take a drink for that.
So maybe evolution proceeded by hybrids instead.
Well, okay. There have been species that came into existence as a result of the hybridization of two closely related species. Right? There was a new species of Galapagos finch recently that came about that way. I believe it's the olive. Sorry, I believe it was the olive baboon that also is a result of hybridization between other closely related baboon species. But no, that is not the main way that evolution proceeds. I mean, it's just not. And no one is proposing it as an alternative to mutations because we don't need an alternative to mutations. Mutations are doing just fine, both in terms of like the math behind population genetics, as well as just observed instances of increases in fitness as a result of mutations that have been observed in real time.
They've started pointing to things like the liger. Yes, Napoleon Dynamite was right. There's such a thing as a liger, a lion tiger.
No one is pointing to the almost entirely sterile liger and tigon as an example of how evolution goes forward in like the Panthera genus. He is just making this up. And it's honestly kind of infuriating. And in this case, I think he's lying. I don't think he's just stupid on this one. Because if you're just stupid, you don't just make up statements that were never spoken by anyone. So, yeah, I'm pretty comfortable in saying that Charles Jackson was lying right here. Good Jackson, do you disagree?
No, you're probably right.
Okay.
And also, you take a horse and a donkey, you get a mule, and there's the comma, the camel llama.
All of which are almost entirely sterile.
Is
Poor thing.
Is he
there's
ever
only-
going to pick like an actual hybrid or a fertile hybrid? Is he ever going to pick one? Or
No, I don't think so, even though they do exist.
Okay.
one of them in the
We're
world
actually
and
one.
doesn't have a girlfriend.
We are a fertile hybrid. Hybrid is we have
Speak for
DNA.
yourself, Homo sapien.
Oh, that's fair. Sorry, us humans over here. We are a member of a what's called a syngamian, which is where you have essentially, for all intents and purposes, quote, good species, but every so often you do get like these rare hybridization events, and so humans do have Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA. Another very well-known syngamian is the oaks of the genus Quercus. Sorry. Most of the species are, again, just quotes there, are considered like good species, but every so often they do share DNA with each other, so you can find some measure of DNA swapping. So yeah,
Well, there you go.
species aren't real.
Yet more evidence that species aren't real.
Take that.
Get out of here, Zach B. Hancock, friend of the channel, who I actually, in fact, respect greatly, but disagree with on a few things.
But I mean, we can do these hybridizations, and evolutionists are now starting to say, well, hybridization then was the way, not mutation.
No one has ever said that. It's just that we acknowledge that hybridizations happen now, and so almost certainly happened in the past, and that we can't just ignore that. But mutations are still the primary way in which the genetic diversity of any population goes up, which we know it does because we can watch it happen.
But hybridization may have been the way that evolution got us to where we are. And of course, they're saying here that hybrids between chimps and humans breeding like 4 million years ago, that's what made us.
If it was 4 million years ago,
Nobody says that.
well, yeah, first, no one says that. But also, if it was 4 million years ago, then it wouldn't have been between chimps and humans. It would have been among the ancestors of chimps and the ancestors of humans, which were, in fact, neither of those things. Because that's how evolution works. And also, they would have been much, much more closely related than their modern descendants are to each other, right? 4 million years ago, an animal on the line leading to genus Pan and an animal on the line leading to genus Homo would have been much more closely related to each other than a modern human and a modern chimpanzee are, because they would have been separated by a much lower amount of time. And so their genomes would have diverged much less, about a third as much overall. Well, not quite, because it's not always linear, but like ballpark here.
You see, humans and chimps split apart for about 1 million years, and some sources said 4 million years, and then they started breeding again, and that's how we came about.
Look, I'm sure
That's
that back
what we
in...
call the business a lie.
Look, I don't know. Maybe back in 2008, there was like such a claim.
I would be shocked. I would be the shocked.
I would be
the
too,
Pikachu.
but I'm not going to rule it out, and I'm also not going to go hunt it down. What I can say is, here in the year of our Lord 2025, I am not aware of anyone making that argument at all.
Yeah.
Monkeys and real people mating.
Real people are all monkeys as far as I can tell.
And so we're just these hybrids. Now, let me explain how this...
Even if all that's true, what does it mean we're just these hybrids? Creationists throw the word just around in front of all sorts of words, and it almost never makes sense to me. Humans are just animals, they're just apes, they're just hybrids, they're just monkeys. What would you prefer to be? Would you rather be a fungus? Would you rather be a chicken? What is so wrong with being a monkey or an ape? I don't
Well,
think
see,
there's
those things are further down on the scale of Natura, so we don't want to be
Oh.
those either.
I mean, I for one don't think there's anything wrong with being a monkey. Some of my best
Well,
friends are monkeys. Look, there's one
yeah.
right there. He just made some hooting noises. Like a monkey. Because he is a monkey. Talking about you, there, Good Jackson.
Well, I appreciate it.
Also, all of my
I do
enemies
hoot
are
and
monkeys.
pant regularly.
Nice. But do you pant hoot?
You know, if I'm feeling it, you know.
All right. Do you and your wife ever, like, holler into the distance to mark your territory and keep away other pair-bonded con-specifics?
Well, the great thing about living in an apartment is we have like a door for that. So we don't usually have and walls. So we don't usually have to howl into the night. We can usually just close and lock
All
said
right.
door.
Well, when the hurricane comes and destroys the building, make sure you start hooting and hollering in order to mark your new territory.
Wait, can I get rid of the hurricane that way?
No, only nukes
Can I
can do
scare
that.
it away?
Only nukes can scare away hurricanes. We know this.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
My mistake.
Moro, who's been a member for 3 months and is at the amulet level, says, I would certainly rather be a fungi. They are cool. I mean, they are cool. And look, if that's something you would prefer, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I'm just going to say, I don't think there's anything wrong with being a monkey. Vinny Marchenko says, maybe Bad Jackson's a furry or a fungi. I mean, hey, you know what? If Bad Jackson wants to be a furry, that's fine by me. Have fun with it, Bad Jackson. I doubt the furries want you. And I don't blame them, because I don't want you in, like, the Star Trek fan club. Because, you know, kind of a piece of shit. But, like, if the furries will take you, enjoy it. Alright, though, it is time to wrap things up here. We have not been going for 2 hours, but we got a late start because someone had to start late. That's someone being Good Jackson. I'm blaming Good Jackson.
Well, it is my fault. I did have to answer some student questions.
So you should have just been like, email me, and I will get back to you tomorrow.
I did kind of have to tell them that. I did tell them about one thing. I will have to respond to this tomorrow. So,
All right. Well, Jackson, do you have anything coming up that you want people to know about?
so on my channel, let's see, we just did the Barnacle's Tale, which was a video that, in a sort of sense, Dapper requested years ago, which we've now finally done. Next will be the Velvet Worm's Tale,
I do love me a
which
velvet worm.
will be on molecular clocks. We do like our molecular clocks. We're getting pretty close to the end of the Ancestor's Tale series, so we're getting there. We're almost done,
All right.
which is pretty cool because we've only been at this for like 4 years now. So
Well, that's pretty cool. All right, so let's take a look at what is coming up here on the channel. So, on today's Tuesday, on Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be having the premiere of Timothy Clary is a Bird Brain. Timothy Clary is in fact he's ICR, right? Yeah.
who is?
Timothy Clary, yeah, he's ICR.
Is he? I have no idea.
Yeah, so he's going to tell us why it is that birds are definitely not dinosaurs, because their brains are just so different. Which, spoiler, no, they're not. They're really, really, really not. So that'll be interesting. Then on Friday, the plan is to do the next episode of Star Trek Lexington over on Top Hats Off, featuring me and featuring Jordan from Reason to Doubt and Chesh from Chesh, as well as Debate Hub now, as also Craig from FTFE, which apparently is going to be changed to Craig McNeil. I don't know. Lots of moving pieces here. Do try to tune in to maybe cheer Craig up. His house recently lost its roof because of a storm, and he had to evacuate. It was a whole big ordeal. So, you know, I'm sure he would appreciate it if people showed up to cheer on Commander Shelby, his character. But that game also features Zerolon, Tirirana, and Necro from the chat. So it's a fun time. That is going to be at 5 p.m. Pacific. 8 p.m. Eastern. Then on Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, I will be back with Vishanti and Dr. Kip Davis, who is in the chat. And we will be continuing on to take a look at Bodhi Hodges' absurdly nonsensical book about the Tower of Babel. Then next Tuesday, I believe, we are back to Kent with Bent. Let me double check. Yes, we
We'll
are.
be so back.
Kent with Bent will be on for the 4th. So, yeah, that is this plan for about a week. If you are interested, I'm going to be going over to my Discord channel. We're going to be watching some Power Rangers Megaforce, because that's where we are. Which, I'll be honest, not the greatest season, but we have to get through it. So, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your week. Stay safe out there. Have escape options planned, because apparently that's the thing that you might need now. And remember, if you call ice on someone, you're definitely the guy who would have given away where the Franks were hiding.
Yeah.
So, don't be a collaborator. All right, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Ben Tovand, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Elleron Teller, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostick Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babdy, Sphincter of Doom, Wallace, Max Cherry, North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, and Strawberry Vein. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.